At this time, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, the main event, Lionel Larache.
To be here with you today at this wonderful event. I only regret that I haven't been able to join you when you started yesterday, and also that I'm not able to stay. But I had a really good look at your program, and it looks like a fabulous event. And I'm going to weave the whole question of leadership into my remarks, but I really do want to focus on the question of diversity. And certainly it's something, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of everybody in this room, something that we absolutely must pay attention to as organizations, as a province, and certainly as a nation. It's almost cliche to say it now, but if we don't smarten up and use all of the human resources that are available to us in this great country of ours, we are not going to be able to realize our potential. Labor shortages in Alberta have already had an impact, and we were just talking at the table before I came up. I think we all know that there's a contraction in the economy, and even in the face of that contraction, as I talk to my colleagues in other businesses, we are short of people. We are recruiting actively. We have huge numbers of vacancies, and we need to bring more and more people into our workforce. The Calgary Economic Development Authority, and please excuse me for quoting Calgary statistics. I realize that we don't really represent the entire province, but in Calgary, over the next 10 years, employment demand in our city alone will be in excess of 244,000 positions. So that's a lot of new jobs or jobs that will be made vacant and need new people in them. The other thing that the Calgary Economic Development Authority is saying is that one of the best sources for that labor that would be brought in would be China, India, Russia, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Mexico, and Vietnam. And so it's good that those people are out there and available. We also need to pay a lot of attention to the resources that we have right here in Canada. So if we want to thrive and grow, certainly diversity is on the agenda and is part of our future. For today's talk, I had initially intended to tell you how Enbridge was tackling the diversity imperative through its programs to engage and enable more women to take leadership positions in our organization. And I think it's, in some respects, one of the things I'm known for in my community of interest. But I want to broaden out that discussion. First of all, if you want to see anything about women in leadership and any remarks I've made, they're on the Enbridge website, and you can take a look at those remarks if you're interested. When I read the conference program, it was clear to me that I needed to broaden my remarks and touch on two other very important diversity opportunities. And I want to be clear that these are not the only diversity opportunities. In my mind, there are at least 4 or 5 other diversity opportunities that are before us. But I do want to touch on 2, and that is the whole question of the opportunity to engage Aboriginal peoples in our workforce and to promote those people into leadership positions in organizations, and also how we can better integrate the new Canadian workforce that we have in our midst. And of course, the common theme through all of this, through diversity by engaging women, diversity by engaging Aboriginal folks, diversity by engaging new Canadians, is that we need to develop the leadership potential of these groups. It's not only engaging them in our organizations, it is developing that leadership potential in those groups and in those people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mentorship at a later point in these remarks. Before I get going, I want to give you just a little bit of information about the company for which I work, and that's Enbridge, of course. Some of you will know about Enbridge. We operate the world's longest crude oil pipeline, and it stretches right from northern Alberta. We go to Toronto, we go to Montreal, and of course we go to the Midwest of the U.S., and that's Chicago and south of Chicago. We also own and operate Canada's largest gas distribution organization. We serve 2 million customers in Toronto, in Ottawa, and in some regions of Quebec, and that's Enbridge Gas Distribution. So we're a big company, but we are in the process of getting even bigger. Right now we have a building program going on, and it's mainly pipeline construction, but we have $13 billion of capital that is currently being spent, and that's the largest capital program our company has ever seen. In addition to the $13 billion, we have another $18 billion of capital in what we call Wave 2 of our growth. So you can imagine, with this unprecedented growth, we've been investing an awful lot of time and energy thinking about how we're going to resource those projects, how we're going to get the people to work on those projects, and how we're going to be hiring in an efficient and effective way to make sure that we are successful. In the last year, more than 500 people have joined Enbridge. I was just telling the folks at our table that we currently have about 500 vacancies, 800 vacancies actually right now, and we are looking at a hiring program next year of more than 500 people. So our organization, which when I joined it was around 4,000, is growing to about 6,200 people, and huge opportunities for individuals in the organization. The other thing, though, that I want to emphasize about Enbridge, and it goes beyond this business of growth and building pipelines and building gas distribution systems, is that we have a very strong ethos of corporate social responsibility. And for us, corporate social responsibility means strong environmental and ethical practices. It means protecting the health and the well-being of our staff, and it means engaging with and supporting the communities within which we operate. And so our philosophy is that as an organization, we are an integral part of society, and we have an obligation to improve the quality of life in the communities within which we work. And we make a very broad definition of community here. We're not just talking about the small towns or the rural areas within which we might have operations. We're talking about the community as a whole. We believe that if the communities of this country and other areas within which we work are vibrant and healthy, our organization will be vibrant and healthy. We believe that we need a strong financial balance sheet and a strong social balance. There's another element to this, and this is about the diversity imperative. We also know that people want to work for organizations that believe in corporate social responsibility. And I can tell you from personal experiences when I talk to our recruiters that when they're interviewing young people and they're asking young people, why did you decide to apply, or why did you elect to send your resume to Enbridge? Very, very frequently people say, you've got a good reputation, you're involved in the community, you give back to the community, you're out there. And that's really important to us. So it's been a very positive thing to adopt that as a high standard. We were named this past year as Canada's top 100 employers, and it was our third year of being named, and we were also named one of Alberta's top 40 employers. So I think that it's some of these initiatives that we're doing that get us on those lists. I'm very proud of that, and I think it's a tangible demonstration of the success that we've seen with some of the programming. I'm going to touch a little more on recognition in a few minutes because we've also been recognized for some other initiatives. But just before I go there, I just want to circle back a little bit on this business of diversity. We really believe that valuing diversity is an important cornerstone of our staffing and our development of people. And if you look on our website again or on our career ads, you'll see a little note that says valuing diversity. We think it's the right thing to do for our business, and we think, of course, as I said before, it's the right thing to do for our communities. But going back to why it's the right thing for our business, not any one person or group of people who have similar backgrounds and experiences have all the answers for a problem. And one of the things that we've learned is by mixing people into our groups and having different groups represented around the table, we get a richer input for problem solving and for the development of our business. We don't have formal targets. We don't have quotas, but we've put in place some policies and some programs that really do support what we're trying to do. For example, we've tried to look at any potential barriers there might be to certain groups to make sure that those barriers are removed. And those are systemic barriers. You've all heard about them. You all know about them. And it's been a lot of work and quite a lot of initiatives shown by our staffing people and our human resources people to make sure that those barriers are reduced and removed where possible. Second element is the implementation of special programs to correct the effects of what has been somewhat less than completely diverse workforce. And so that would mean making sure that we promote the participation of particular groups in our workforce in an active way, not a passive way. In addition to equal opportunity, we look at policies that cover employment equity and anti-harassment. I think that's becoming more and more of an issue in the workplace, and organizations are stepping up and defining harassment and actually taking steps to prevent it and make sure it doesn't happen. And also, very important in our organization that we have strong programs to help people develop their management skills, their leadership skills, and to help them work with the employees that are in their particular groups. So it's been a very intense program of trying to get the right strategies in place, not only to bring people in, but to develop them as managers, develop them as leaders, and help them be much more effective with the people that they work with. I just want to focus for a minute on the women's side. When I joined Enbridge, it's almost 11 years ago now, I was the first woman on the executive leadership team. So I was the first woman to actually be on the team that reported to the CEO, and that was when Enbridge was almost 50 years old. So it was a pretty traditional male-dominated culture. You know, it was a pipeline company and a gas distribution company, and that's the way it operated. I was promoted a couple of times after my first couple of years there, and I still was, even as I was being promoted, I hadn't been successful in seeing more women join. So I was the first woman senior vice president, then the first woman group vice president. We got some traction a few years ago, though, and so now we have 7 women vice presidents, which is fantastic, and we also have 17 women who are in the stream to become vice presidents. They're at the director level, but that's the sort of feedstock for the vice president's position, if you will. So we've improved thousands of %, but on a pretty skinny base, I would have to confess. 31% of our employees are female, and of those 31%, 27% of those folks are in leadership positions, moving up into greater responsibility. So they'll be moving up into, for example, management roles and ultimately, we hope, to director roles. But we need to do better. There's no question about it. And we realized that it was happening organically, but it wasn't happening fast enough. And, you know, as I say, in 11 years, we've gone from 1 to 7. It's really not the best performance it's not the performance that you really want, especially when you consider that we've got a fairly strong cohort of talented women in our organization. So a couple of years ago, we decided to set up a program called Women at Enbridge. And this emerged from kind of an interesting couple of days I had. I'd been asked to speak at a women's initiative function for Deloitte in Calgary. And then coincidentally, the very next day, I was asked to speak at a women's initiative event at Petro-Canada. And in both cases, I'm there talking about women in leadership. And the penny dropped for me. I'm thinking, I'm here talking about women in leadership. And at my own organization, we haven't really done very much but to watch the organic growth of women in leadership, which I didn't think was enough. And so I went to work with some of our senior women, some of our VPs, and we set up an organization called Women at Enbridge. And I mean, at Enbridge, when we do something, we really do it. They've got their own logo, they've got their own business cards, they've got their own pads of paper. It's become quite a thing. But it has turned into a very, very good program. It's a program, it's enterprise-wide, and we're in Calgary, of course, we're in Edmonton, we're in Houston, and we are in Toronto. So we have a branch of this program in every major location. The program is to promote leadership development and career advancement for female employees. There is a formal structure. There's an Enbridge-wide steering committee. And the mandate of the group is to make sure that we are providing our female employees with development and leadership opportunities. So we've had very good participation. We had 60 events in our first year of operation. We sponsor events both inside the organization and outside the organization. Some of you may have heard of the Famous Five Foundation. We sponsor that foundation that holds luncheons in Calgary, Edmonton, Fort McMurray, and Ottawa now. We are sponsors of an organization called the Women's Executive Network, and we sponsor a variety of events that are geared to the development of women and the development of leadership in women, actually. So we're very pleased with how that program has moved. The other thing that we did that I think would be interesting and unique is we decided that there were all these women's initiatives functioning in various organizations kind of independently. So Deloitte had one, and Petro-Can had one, and then we discovered that other companies had one. So we contacted the leadership of those organizations, and we put together an organization called WINC, Women in Calgary Networks. And so the women that are the leaders of these various networks are now meeting and sharing resources, sharing speakers, and sharing synergies. I am really excited about this program, and so I'm the executive sponsor, so they've kind of kicked me off the steering committee now. But if anybody is interested in chatting with me about this at any time, please call, because it's a very good program, and our objective would be to share the word on that and see it move out into other organizations. I want to speak for a moment about the whole area of the non-traditional sources of skilled labor. And when I say non-traditional, I don't even really feel good using that term, because these sources of skilled labor should not be non-traditional. They should be fully integrated into our workforce plans and into our programs. But unfortunately, that has not been the case. And one group that certainly fits into this category in many organizations is the Aboriginal community. Across Canada, the Aboriginal community is a great source of opportunity, not just for business and for industry, but for the communities themselves. And I think it's not unknown, certainly to most of you, that with the retirement of the baby boomers looming, large numbers of people leaving the workforce, the actual demographics of the Aboriginal community is of great benefit to our labor force. The 1.2 million Aboriginal people in Canada are under the age of 25. That's a huge pool of talent, of skill and, in many cases, undiscovered and undeveloped opportunity. So it's a tremendous opportunity to work with these communities, to work with the leadership in these communities, to create employment for today as well as for tomorrow. And with an emphasis, of course, on developing the talent, delivering prosperity to those communities. And that has been our approach with Aboriginal engagement. It is to consult, to listen, and find mutually beneficial long-term solutions for our Aboriginal neighbours and communities along our pipeline. One recent example is the construction of our Wapisiw pipeline, which we completed earlier this year. It runs from the Alberta oil sands down to the refineries and upgraders in Edmonton. In this case, we provided funding to the Heart Lake First Nations near Lac La Biche, and because they wanted to they wanted to buy a sawmill. So then we became the first customer of the sawmill. We put an order in for skids, which we used in our pipeline construction, and we've continued that very positive partnership and relationship with that group of folks. In Saskatchewan, where we're building our Clipper pipeline, Alberta Clipper pipeline going through Saskatchewan, we've teamed up with the Saskatchewan Indian Institute of Technologies for a training for employment program. It's primarily directed to the residents of Saskatchewan's 23 First Nations communities that are near our pipeline right-of-way, which is now under construction. So we're working very actively with that institution. This is a program to help Aboriginal students develop job skills that are relevant to the Alberta Clipper pipeline project and to other Enbridge projects as well. And so I should say other pipeline projects as well. Some of them would be Enbridge projects, some of them may not. And while it would be our desire for many of those people to stay with us when the pipeline project is finished, certainly they would have the qualifications to move on to other projects either in that